Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists, like Kunle, put people at the heart of everything they create.
In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
Kunle and his team are building a Wi-Fi experience that connects 1 billion devices every year. Learn more about how Comcast is redefining the future of connectivity at comcastcorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Department of Defense is working with Google to help secure America's digital defense systems, from establishing cloud-based zero-trust solutions to deploying the latest AI technology. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
I'm Candice Lim.
And I'm Kate Lindsay. And you're listening to ICYMI.
In case you missed it.
Slate's podcast about internet culture.
And Kate, welcome back. How was your vacation in Dublin? Restful, I hope?
Dublin, it was interesting. Dublin was not as restful as it could have been because it is a city. But when we went west, I drove on the left-hand side of the road towards County Galway. That was like our moods changed immediately. We were staying in a little thatched cottage. There were cows everywhere. That was really nice. So yes, by the end of it all, I was well rested. And today I am somehow well rested and not, because due to jet lag, I slept for 12 hours, but also due to jet lag, I don't know when or where or what time it is right now at all. But
yeah,
luckily podcasting is eternal. It can be any time right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed you're even here in the booth with me now. And I did want to ask, just get it out of the way. Like, did you bring anything nice for me? Like a little gifty?
Listen, I did buy a lot of little souvenirs. Let me see. What's in front of me that I can offer you? I bought, here, you can have these candles. They're like twisted, colorful candles.
Oh my God.
They're little because I thought they were birthday candles, but it turns out they're not. And so now I'm like scared to put them in a birthday cake. So you can have those.
I'll take those. Oh my God, that's so fun. And then like speaking of jet lag, what did you watch on the plane?
Okay, yes. On the way there, I just slept. I was trying my hardest to like get a night of sleep. But on the way back, I also tried to sleep, but I did make time to watch The Invisible Man, starring
Elizabeth Moss?
Yes, Elizabeth Moss.
Oh.
I'd never seen it before, and I was with two friends who had seen it, and they were like, yeah, it's a plain movie. And I was like, great, say less, put it on. And that's also my assessment. It's a plain movie.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I love asking this question, especially since you do cover internet culture as well. Did you feel like you were able to unplug? Or were there any, like, weird internet references that, like, crossed over to Dublin that you were like, whoa, they have that here too, whoa?
You know what? The thing is, I think you miss out on a crucial tourist experience if you fully unplug when you go abroad, because by going to Dublin, I have access to Dublin TikTok, and you get entirely different videos.
Oh!
And so I would actually really recommend at least clocking in on TikTok, because then you just suddenly get a whole different culture of videos. And so that was a lot of fun. But the thing is, Dublin TikTok, you know, it has cultural things, it has very insular niche things I don't get. But I would say, I imagine the big hitters cross over. I saw the Chapel Roan podcast interview. I saw the Cory Booker filibustering. I saw the Remy Bader drama. It all was international. It's a universal language.
Wow, I didn't know this. Wait, I actually have more questions about Dublin TikTok. Like,
yeah.
Could you feel it immediately? Was it like they were showing you a lot of local news, or was it just like a lot of the people who were like stitching videos just happened to have Irish accents?
Basically, yeah. I just started getting the days in the life stopped being in New York. It was gradual, and they just started to be like in Dublin, or like even on Reddit. We actually used r/Ask Ireland a bunch, because one thing they don't really have over there is tied to go pens.
Oh.
They're just like rare. They're harder to find. And one of us got a stain, as one is wont to do. Mm-hmm. And we went to so many different places just trying to find a Tide to Go pen. But instead, we had to do like a full load of laundry to get rid of it. They do not have that over there.
This is so interesting. Okay, so while you were abroad, you missed Tide to Go. You did not miss the big stories. Corey, Justin Bieber crashing out on IG. Did you catch a wind of this?
Okay, that I got peripherally.
Okay, good.
It's like these are all sort of awakening things in me as you say them.
Yeah. And the thing is, there is one story that I did want to catch you up on. It's about a podcast called Emergency Intercom that caught fire this week for supposedly coming at Greta Thunberg. And I'll get into it, but first, let's take a break. After the break, why a recent episode has been causing massive backlash among their loyal fans. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Shopping at Saks is the perfect way to discover the latest styles, elevate your everyday look, and refresh your wardrobe just in time for spring. At Saks, you'll find inspiration for every occasion, from casual outfits to special events. My favorite thing to do in my off time is to go online shopping, and I cannot recommend the Saks.com experience enough. They have so many of my wishlist brands on the website, from Amina Muaddi shoes to Alice and Olivia dresses. And it's spring, which means wedding season is starting up. Saks inspires me to discover looks for anything and everything on my agenda, from destination wedding dresses to shoes that can last the whole weekend. Whether you're refreshing your entire wardrobe or shopping for a vacation, Saks makes it fun and easy. So, if you're looking for a fun, effortless shopping experience and want to elevate your personal style, head to Saks. That's Saks.com for everyday inspiration. Listen to Sunrise on the Reaping, the highly anticipated new audiobook in the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins on Audible. Hear Jefferson White narrate the story of the legendary survivor, young Haymitch Abernathy. Revisit the world of Panem, 24 years before the original Hunger Games series. As the day dawns on the 50th annual Hunger Games, fear grips the districts of Panem. This year, in honor of the Quarter Quell, twice as many tributes will be taken from their homes. I'm so excited for this story because I've been a big Hunger Games fan since the first trilogy came out. I remember being in middle school, absolutely staying up all night to get through the trilogy. And this relationship has stuck with me through adulthood, and it's going to continue with the Sunrise on the Reaping because I will take any excuse to dive back into the world of Panem. Whether you're a passionate fan or just starting your journey, venture to District 12 and hear the story the world's been waiting for. Welcome to the 50th Hunger Games. Experience the worldwide best-selling series in a whole new way. Go to audible.com/sunrise and listen with the world. And we're back. So, Kate, do you know who or what the Emergency Intercom podcast is?
If you had just sort of said the name of that podcast to me in a vacuum, no, that nothing would come up. But that is another thing that even across the Atlantic Ocean, it did kind of make its way on my For You page.
Wow.
I know who the key players are by sight.
Yeah.
I know they have a podcast. I didn't realize it was, I guess, as popular as the recent drama would make it seem. And so I'm curious to hear all that and more from you because, yeah, I'm very much coming in as an outsider.
Yeah. And we'll get to the drama later. But first, I kind of want to give like a crash course in what we're talking about. So I'm a recent watcher of Emergency Intercom. I will admit it is not an easy podcast to get into because it's very niche. But let me really back it up. Emergency Intercom, it's a podcast that was started and hosted by Enya, Umanzor, and Drew Phillips. Enya's around 24, Drew's around 28. And before this podcast, they were Vine creators. And they met because they became Vine famous enough to tour with Press Play, which was a company that puts on like meet and greets with influencers. It was essentially like a VidCon traveling circus. Have you dabbled? Have you attended?
No, Press Play is not familiar to me, but it sounds like, like Playlist Live is another one. There's a lot of places that popped up over the years.
Exactly. And when Drew and Enya met, they kind of became a small, weird friend group who posted little videos and funny bits online before content creator or influencer was a thing.
Yeah, and I feel like this is such a classic person who is clearly older and not the young generation anymore thing to say, but I really do miss that era of online comedy when it was very just like, I don't know, intrinsically motivated in the sense that you just thought of something funny and you wanted to make it. Like a few weeks ago, actually, my husband and I were watching the earliest Lonely Island videos that were out there before Andy Samberg was even a huge part of it, or even like Kyle Mooney and Beck Bennett pre-SNL. They have some really great videos. And it's funny because you watch them and the pacing is weird and they're kind of long and it's low quality, but it's special.
Yeah. There's kind of like a Brooklyn, Silver Lake alt comedy vibe to it. And the circle that Drew and Enya run in is important. When Drew and Enya moved to LA, they moved in together with a third roommate named Josh. I would ask if you know Josh, but I know you know Josh because he made this Vine.
Jared, could you read number 23 for the class? No, I cannot.
What up? I'm Jared, I'm 19, and I never fucking learned how to read.
This blows my mind. I'm Jared and I never learned how to read was like everything I reblogged on Tumblr. There was no opportunity that didn't benefit from saying it. To find out that his real name is Josh.
I know.
Gosh.
And on top of this, he was their roommate.
And they were roommates.
Another thing. And here's the thing. On top of all of this, okay? Enya was like a burgeoning model when she was coming up to the point where she was doing collabs with Miu Miu and Celine. Therefore, she's also randomly friends with Tyler, the Creator, and some of the Brockhampton boys, that tier of young Hollywood.
Well, I feel like I should say that one time I saw Tyler, the Creator, walking into Scar's Pizza.
Oh.
We didn't make eye contact and interact, but, listen, we've all been around Tyler, the Creator, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
but okay.
Yeah.
I think we all know Tyler, the Creator. Yeah. Okay, so Enya and Drew meet. When does the podcast happen?
Yeah, I mean, they tease it online. They're making trailers. They have a small group of people being like, where's Pod? 2021. They finally post the first episode of Emergency Intercom on YouTube. And I will play a little bit of it for you.
This is what you've been waiting for.
This is the setup
for the podcast called Emergency Intercom.
A podcast by Drew Phillips and Enya Umanzor.
It's not an emergency, but it is, because we need attention. And it is an emergency for attention. It's an emergency call for you to look at me.
Okay, from first glance, I'm seeing a blonde girl with a curly-haired guy. The guy's sitting on a weird chair that looks like both fried chicken and somehow the cordyceps from The Last of Us.
Yeah, and the thing is, they are filming this in the corner of their kitchen. So, look, low production value. I say that lovingly. And this is essentially what the vibe of their podcast is. Some call it stream of consciousness, but I really think it's like being in your weirdest friend's Honda Civic. And, you're in the back seat. You're hearing them say whatever's coming to their mind. And the podcast is kind of like a branch or maybe a portal into Enya and Drew's friendship. This is a friendship that you may have with someone who is just as like Tumblr online and AO3 pilled as you. And they also say their podcast is like where they make poop jokes and try to troll their audience to kind of get a reaction out of them. I'll give an example. This is a clip. You'll hear Enya, Drew, and then a third voice. That is their producer, Kai.
I was merging onto the fucking highway last night and I didn't put my blinker on.
Girls driving, am I right?
That's gonna get clipped and we're cooked.
I think this clip says a few things about the vibe of this podcast, from those massive pauses they take for comedic effect to the strain of like jokey, not woke humor to the self-awareness of their producer saying people are going to clip this and we're cooked. Like they are aware of how things sound and what could be misconstrued.
And I guess like kind of playing into it, it seems, but like, is it a big podcast? Because I never listened to it. I guess I knew it existed, like truly in the back of my brain. But, the reaction has been wild to what we're about to explain. But even if their humor is specific and they're firing off poop jokes in their 20s, like how are they gaining popularity?
Yeah. I would say the podcast is not mainstream. They have a very niche audience, but they have about 480,000 subscribers on YouTube. And their podcast episodes on YouTube, they average around 400,000 plus views per videos. To me, this indicates that their fan base may be small to some, but extremely engaged. Like their subscribers are watching close to every episode. That ratio between followers and views is just like really, really rare and hard to find.
Yeah, oh my God. If I can barely even get like over 30% of my readers to read my newsletter, like that's crazy. And you know, you think about something like the amount of Kardashian Instagram accounts, they have these huge amount of followers, but their likes, that doesn't really match, you know, bot allegations. And then even I know from working behind the curtain, when I used to work at Refinery 29, one time Kim Kardashian posted a link to one of our articles on her story. And like it helped a little bit, but like not a lot. Like people were not clicking despite there being millions of them.
Yeah. And look, if Emergency Intercom has bots, I might be one of them. But they've definitely gotten bigger for sure. Outside of the podcast, they've done collabs with Wildflower Cases. That's a very internet-y phone case brand by an influencer named Devin Lee Carlson. They've modeled in campaigns for places like Mad Happy. Once again, very online brand. So they're kind of getting known, you know?
Yeah. Because it's notable that, you know, when we talk about their first video, they're recording in their kitchen. It seems very, very low budget, but they've kind of, you know, in a niche way, but still blown up. Do they still have that magic or are they more polished?
So this is a good question because I did want to bring up something that did happen in 2024, which is that their podcast got acquired by Tiny Meat Gang Studios, infamously the network founded by Noel Miller and Cody Ko. And you might remember that last year, Cody Ko stepped down from the network because it was revealed that he allegedly had a sexual relationship with YouTuber Tana Mojo when she was underage. Soon after Emergency Intercom, they announced that they're leaving Tiny Meat Gang and they went back to their kitchen corner where they still filmed the pod.
Oh my gosh, back to their roots. Okay, so lots of changes. Fans still engaged, which is interesting because I was looking through their sort of YouTube page and they take a few months-long breaks where they're not really putting out episodes. Like it seems a little bit inconsistent, which is ironic because, I don't know, in our industry, no days off. You have to make a weekly podcast to stay relevant. It has to be there like every week. And they say the exact same thing about YouTubers too. Like if you are out of people's brains for even like a minute, you take a hit. So that's why they often burn out because they're churning out content. So I don't know, are they like immune from this or are their fans finding ways to keep up with them even when they're taking these long breaks? Or just not care?
I think it's twofold. One, their humor is so unhinged to the point where they're kind of like your most out-of-pocket friends that you really cannot be around too much because they'll make inside jokes and references you don't really have time to understand. So them taking a break from their audience, I think is actually good for the audience. On top of that, I think they represent the type of media that people their age and younger consume, which really reminds me of the YouTubers I would watch in middle school, which is that like even though your favorite parasocial YouTuber, even if they post every Thursday when they miss a week, they can kind of get away with it because it's not like they explicitly promised or owed you anything.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, what does keep people coming back despite these breaks? Like, why do people like them?
Yeah, it's tough because... Gotta be honest, there are like less than 2 people in my life I would recommend this podcast to. This podcast is kind of like a litmus test of someone's humor and internet taste. Their sense of humor is so particular that you not only need to be kind of clued into their lore, but they also say edgy stuff that out of context can be misconstrued, maybe even offensive.
Well, I feel like clips from podcasts are like the famous downfall of so many people, but it seems like they've gotten bigger despite saying these out-of-pocket things that could get clipped, or maybe it's, because of saying those things.
And I would say, they've had a pretty good streak recently. They had YouTuber influencer Quenlin Blackwell on. They've had model Alex Consani on, and those episodes did great. And while they're on a hot streak, they do take a break. And I was moderating their subreddit during this break. Fans were anticipating, counting down the days till their return. And they did return to a less than warm welcome.
Yes, this whole thing is what this all has been leading up to, and I want to hear more about that. But first, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll explain how Greta Thunberg enters the conversation and what this says about who is allowed to cancel an internet celebrity.
Maybe you like keeping your money where you can see it. Unfortunately, big wireless carriers like keeping your money too. If you're fed up with crazy high bills, bogus fees, and quote-unquote free perks that cost more in the long run, switch to Mint Mobile. I have been on Mint Mobile's unlimited plan, and I really, really like it as a product and service. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone and bring your number along with your contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/ICYMI. That's mintmobile.com/ICYMI. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month, 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Shopping at Saks is the perfect way to discover the latest styles, elevate your everyday look, and refresh your wardrobe just in time for spring. At Saks, you'll find inspiration for every occasion, from casual outfits to special events. My favorite thing to do in my off time is to go online shopping, and I cannot recommend the Saks.com experience enough. They have so many of my wishlist brands on the website, from Amina Muaddi shoes to Alice and Olivia dresses. And it's spring, which means wedding season is starting up. Saks inspires me to discover looks for anything and everything on my agenda, from destination wedding dresses to shoes that can last the whole weekend. Whether you're refreshing your entire wardrobe or shopping for a vacation, Saks makes it fun and easy. So, if you're looking for a fun, effortless shopping experience and want to elevate your personal style, head to Saks. That's Saks.com for everyday inspiration.
Oh, I see why, my listeners. Do I have a scoop for you? So what is it, you ask? It's that Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Now, before anyone goes suggesting that this is just a rumor, know that there's actual proof that this kettle of tea is not only piping hot, but 100% true. So, yeah, sometimes it pays to be a little nosy, but it always pays to discover. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Hey there! If you're a regular listener who enjoys ICYMI, it would mean the world if you gave us a 5-star rating or review on Apple or Spotify. Every episode of ICYMI is different, from exploring the TikTokification of sports to taking deep dives into the drama within online fandoms. Sometimes that means our episodes can become part of those stories, resulting in negative reviews from people who aren't actually listeners of the show. That's why it's so important for the real ICYMI heads to be represented in these ratings. If that's you, it would be great if you could show us some love. All right, back to the episode. And we're back. All right, Candice, before the break, you ran through the Emergency Intercom lore. You told me who Drew and Enya were. Now you're telling me they have beef with Greta Thunberg?
Sort of, not really, but let me give some context. So like I said, they take about a month's long break, and when they come back, at first, their fans are so happy. I watched the episode. I find the episode pretty harmless and typical of their style, but what really took off and made their subreddit very up in arms is a comment they made about Greta Thunberg. Basically, they were talking about their friend Devin when Drew, out of nowhere, randomly says, quote, "You know who else fell off? Greta Thunberg. That bitch is in the gutters." And then they move on to something else. But then they bring it up again.
But what was I saying? Oh yeah, Greta Thunberg fell off. Bitches in the gutter. Her legacy being lesbian, and I shouldn't be up here. Is
the thing is
so perfectly what's wrong with everything in this world, because she literally was that girl. She was fighting for climate change.
Her saying she shouldn't be up there, you're right, you should be in school, and your parents kind of suck for not letting you just go to school and be fucking normal. But poor girl, she was fighting for a cause that she felt so strong for.
I think she's still fighting for it, but in 20 years she'll probably
fighting where? Because I don't see her.
And then they start talking about whether she can be president.
Easy question. She cannot. And as much as we would probably benefit from it.
Yeah, because she's Swedish. And then Enya compares Greta to Malala Yousafzai, and she says, quote, Malala low-key never fell off, like Malala is always that girl. And pretty immediately, there are Reddit threads about their comments being tone deaf. I'm seeing new ep got the vibes of losing interest in your boyfriend before breaking up with him, all the way to by far one of the worst episodes they've put out, and posts like why I won't be watching this week or probably ever again.
Okay, so I'm a little bit surprised from what you've said that people are so mad about that just because of your explanation about who they are and what they've always been doing. It feels like pretty in line with the jokes they've been making, or maybe it's satire. Mm-hmm. But, given the situation of the world right now, I can also understand why the comments were insensitive. The background being that we're probably not hearing from Greta because she's being suppressed by algorithms, because she's currently engaging and posting about, pro-Palestine movement. She's also obviously still on that climate change activism beat. Mm-hmm. Really important things that, I don't know, we might not be seeing because they're not super flashy. They're being suppressed, or we're just not looking out for them. But do you think there's more to this than just podcast hosts firing off tone-deaf comments or jokes in bad taste?
So I'm surmising there are 3 reasons people are mad. The first being making fun of Greta, who is getting arrested at protests while actively doing the work. It can come off as punching down on her. Second, I think some viewers felt like this joke, if it's a joke, showed their ignorance or a degree of apathy about what's going on in the world. And the criticism off that was like, you guys are stuck in a bubble now that you're famous and you have money and you guys need to educate yourself, come back down to earth. We've heard that before. And the last thing, I think if you're a fan who's been disappointed by their content lately and the breaks have been too inconsistent for you, maybe there was a rising tension and this was the moment you needed to get off the freeway and fully exit the community. Like you were looking for an out to kind of release festering negative responses you had to the podcast direction, and this was that out.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for different jokes. And I think you do have to be aware of your audience. An audience is a big part about whether or not a joke will work. And I don't know, it kind of sounds like their audience is pretty big and also maybe had these feelings already. Do you think there's merit to this critique? I mean, the Reddit threads, the TikToks, I'm not someone who's involved in this at all. And yet they're all over my feeds.
Yeah, so I think Enya and Drew are kind of known and popular because they can be edgy, borderline offensive, politically incorrect. They're not Red Scare Pod level. They're also not comedians who kind of cover heinous views by saying I'm just joking, you can't take a joke. But they do bits like this all the time. Some of those bits are things like Drew, he's gay, and Enya, a straight woman. He jokes about them being married. They joke about how Drew and their producer are in a relationship. Things that maybe stay inside the friend group. But what I find fascinating is that they have said so many worse things or off color, could be taken offensively things than this. And their audience, who knows these people quite well and are extremely well versed in that tone and rhythm and tenor of their humor and content, they're mad about this incident when there is a full archive showing who they were leading up to this point.
Yeah, because we were saying, there's nothing about these jokes that feels like a hard left turn from their past content, but it's there must be a reason this reaction is happening, which leads me to the C word, which is obviously cancellation. Do you think they're canceled? Would we brand them as canceled right now?
So this incident kind of made me want to bring up something I call the 3 categories of internet backlash. I feel like there is kind of a spectrum of the way that we kind of try to take down internet celebrities. Sometimes it is merited, other times it's kind of misplaced anger. But I would say the first category is calling out. To me, this is when a loyal viewer, a fan with good intentions, privately or softly tells a content creator, hey, so I just want to let you know that this thing you said might be taken the wrong way.
Oh, getting a hey girly message.
Yes,
or a little
yes.
I'm going to hold your hand when I say this.
Yeah,
but, they're doing it out of love. They're
Yeah.
doing it under the assumption it was an honest mistake and, with full confidence that they'll learn why and move on.
Yeah. And then we have a second category, criticism, which I define as an observation based off a pattern of behaviors. So this could range from problematic things they've said, people they've referenced or followed or hung out with that suggest they lean toward or believe in certain harmful principles. And while you don't need to be a loyal viewer day one to have criticism, you do have to have been casual enough to take in a few videos and been I'm noticing something.
Okay. And the last category?
Yeah. So the last category is cancellation. And this is full-blown breach containment. It's not just your fans who are coming at you with criticism and allegations. I would say a marker of this category is getting mainstream outlets like NBC News or Deadline to write about you.
Oh, yeah.
And in this category, I would put Colleen Ballinger, probably Cody Ko.
Tana is another one. She was one of the early viral internet culture cancellations of this sort of new internet era with TanaCon, that sort of failed alt VidCon that she tried. But case in point, some of these canceled figures have tried to bounce back.
I know.
But I also think that cancellations seem to really stick when it's not just happening within the fandom. It's like when outside people come in and are like, yeah, this is bad. And so it's like, does it require someone outside the audience to be mad as well? Like, if non-viewers don't like you or if serious criticisms about you, but they aren't really the people you make content for, does that really count as canceled?
I think the source of the criticism, unfortunately, says more about the degree of cancellation than the allegations themselves. Bringing it back to Emergency Intercom, to be honest, I was not sure if this was a big deal or if this story was breaking containment, but then a few things happened. The first being, hey, we're talking about cancellation. Trisha Paytas.
Oh my gosh, the ultimate uncancelable creator.
Yeah. Trisha Paytas, she talked about this incident on her podcast and had a 9-minute, pretty nuanced conversation about it. Second, my TikTok For You page started serving me these long video essays critiquing, analyzing the incident. And this was also one of the first times that I actually got a visual of who Emergency Intercom's audience is. How old are they? What do they look like? And I kind of realized that their audience is really young. I'm talking 19 to mid to late 20s with a sprinkling of young 30s who probably knew them from the Vine era. And then I did start seeing Reddit posts with screenshots of racist tweets, which Enya admits to have written in a video where she also admits to using the N-word in the past.
Oh my God. I
know.
The racist tweets resurfacing is kind of a marker of the criticism to cancellation pipeline. And this happens across all industries, especially with up-and-coming actors, especially if you've just been cast on SNL. The first thing everyone does is, I feel troll through your Twitter. Frankly, it's happened so much that I can't believe it still happens, that proactive measures haven't been taken by everyone. But, it's also, I guess, part of this.
Yeah, and I guess while we're here, we should probably acknowledge the fact that for a lot of people who are allegedly canceled, they're not really canceled because then they come back and they're still putting out movies that are coming out this summer. But I also kind of want to bring in the Emergency Intercom subreddit here for a second because, in that subreddit, fans don't usually talk about their episodes, but instead they kind of treat the subreddit as a group chat where they post things they think Drew and Enya would like or jokes they think they'd find funny. And once this episode dropped, the tension changed, the vibe changed, where it kind of became this slew of criticism that started with the Greta Thunberg comments and then ballooned into their downfall began when they started making bank. And the thing is, I can't tell if these are new haters trolling them in a smear campaign, or if these were sleeper haters who were once fans and they were waiting for an opportunity to jump, or are these real fans who are genuinely disappointed, not only about the Greta thing, but about how much they've changed, and they're kind of using this opportunity to air out those grievances.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression I get too, just because, like I said, I just didn't really see much about this podcast at all. And now that this incident has happened, I'm seeing it everywhere in a way that I'm it's just the ratio of people mad versus incident is seems a little off to me. And I think it is maybe the straw that broke the camel's back. And when we're talking about audience, it's tough because, parasocial YouTubers, podcasters, they're allowed to grow. And you're also, as an audience member, allowed to grow out of them. And if Emergency Intercom is not for you anymore, that's okay. I get the sense, though, that this is the closest they've gotten to being canceled. Speaking of being written about, if Know Your Meme has a page about this incident, which it does, the artwork for the page has the word canceled emblazoned across in huge red block letters. So, that's pretty definitive. But do you think they are canceled, and can they recover from this? Where do they even go from here?
At the time of this taping, they have not posted a statement or really acknowledged the backlash. I also don't think this incident is being raised to cancellation levels yet. Because this backlash, it's coming from longtime fans and viewers who are treating this kind of like a breaking point between them and the podcast. But in the meantime, I will say that I have two takeaways I've been thinking about while I'm trying to like parse through what's going on here. The first is that I think it's okay to disagree with people you look up to. Whether it is your parasocial besties, public figures, even your friends, all of these people will probably have bad takes from time to time, and it is up to you to figure out which ones are bad enough to be your deal breakers. That is a part of discernment. Second, I think the pandemic plays a part in this because this podcast started in 2021 when people were probably missing their friends and trying really hard to find social belonging post-social distancing. And that's kind of the hole that Drew and Enya filled for a lot of their audience. And I think the reason why this backlash surprised me is because right now, I just think there are so many other things to be mad about in the world, and this may be the biggest story in this subgroup of fans, but if you are that passionate about Greta Thunberg and uplifting her activism, there are actual lawmakers and governments threatening those issues you claim to be passionate about, and I just wonder if Drew and Enya are kind of being used as a canvas for that anger, because maybe there's just kind of like a growing helplessness or hopelessness amongst young people in their audience that doesn't have much to do with them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is a motivation behind a lot of these instances when one person becomes, I wouldn't say the scapegoat in this instance, because I think it's totally fair if you do take offense to that comment, but I would say I have to imagine that a lot of the anger is fueled by what you mentioned. And we're in a moment right now where we feel really helpless by what's happening in the world and like the things we've been told that we have the power to do, like voting, calling our representatives. It's kind of unclear how much change that makes, at least in the immediate term. Whereas yelling at two podcast hosts feels really immediate. It's really accessible. Mm-hmm. And so I think, it's not necessarily conscious, but that anger has to go somewhere. And it goes, unfortunately, in this case, to podcasters because they're in front of you and you have more hope, I think, of reaching them. Someone who I don't think this is reaching, though, Greta Thunberg. I mean, The whole reason why she's so admirable and powerful is that she is not concerning herself with this drama. Like, she is busy advocating for Palestine. She is busy advocating for the environment. I don't think she's listening to Emergency Intercom. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and look, speaking of podcasts, I also wondered if this was maybe like a life cycle thing because, hey, how many podcasts have you listened to consistently for the past 5 years, Kate?
I mean, I don't think there is one. Except for ICYMI. Before it was even a podcast, I was listening to it.
And I bring this up because this podcast started in 2021. They are on their 5th year. And I just was thinking about the fact that, like, I'm not listening to the same podcast. I'm not watching the same shows I consumed 5 years ago. So is it possible that sometimes this is just what happens? The content stays the same, but the audience has to change.
Yeah, I think that's another, you just keep saying truths today, Candice. I think that's such another thing is that, especially when you're resonating so much with a piece of content, but then you outgrow it, it feels like they changed, but I actually think in a lot of cases, maybe you've changed. Like, if this joke is really not hitting right, but it's no different from past jokes, I do wonder if maybe there's, I don't know, because of how you've grown, because of how things have changed in the world, you just don't find that funny anymore, which is totally fair.
Yeah.
And if there's a half-life on a podcast, you mentioned you were a recent convert to Emergency Intercom. Are you going to keep watching?
Well, it's fascinating you asked that because they did just post their first post-Greta episode and they didn't acknowledge the situation at all. But right before the episode went up on YouTube, they posted an apology statement on Instagram, writing, quote, "What we said about Greta and Malala last week was reckless, and it goes directly against why we started this podcast in the first place." They continued that their jokes were, quote, out of touch and careless, and that they're committed to continuing to educate themselves. And even though they apologized, I would still say, though, that, like, if this moment was a deal breaker for those in the Emergency Intercom community, there are some comparable alts in the space now, like Upstairs Neighbors. Have you heard of this podcast?
it only was brought up in the context of like an alternative to Emergency Intercom. And now I've been getting lots of clips on my feed. I've hit follow. Very fun.
Yeah, that's a good podcast. They have very similar free-flowing vibes. They also film it in their home. So
yeah, different room, not a kitchen, but close.
Exactly. Very much second floor. And, you know, maybe that's the vibe. Take a break. Try them out. Worst case scenario, find your weirdest friend, start your own podcast. How about that?
And you're going to want to do it pretty quick before the tariffs come for podcast equipment. You know, pop up 2 chairs in your kitchen, in your friend's kitchen. You too can make weird, off-putting jokes about Greta Thunberg. Just don't be surprised, though, when we have to record an ICYMI episode about you.
Okay, that's the show. We'll be back in your feed on Wednesday, so definitely subscribe. That way, you never miss an episode. Leave us a rating and a review in Apple or Spotify, and tell your friends about us. You can follow us on Twitter at ICYMI_pod, and you can always drop us a note at ICYMI@slate.com.
ICYMI is produced by Olivia Briley, Candice Lim, and me, Kate Lindsay, with help from AC Valdez. Daisy Rosario is our senior supervising producer, and Hillary Fry is Slate's editor-in-chief. See you online.
Or on the Irish side of TikTok.
Oh, ICYMI listeners, do I have a scoop for you? So what is it, you ask? It's that Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Now, before anyone goes suggesting that this is just a rumor, know that there's actual proof that this kettle of tea is not only piping hot, but 100% true. So, yeah, sometimes it pays to be a little nosy, but it always pays to discover. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/creditcard.